Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. This is episode number 6. We've got a pretty fun show in tap today. The NFL draft is only 2 weeks away, so we're going to be going over some storylines there. We're going to continue our regrading of the 2022 first round, which we started in the last episode, talking about the NBA playoffs, the early portion of the MLB season, along with some fun segment at the end. So, of course, I am joined by Nickinator, if you want to say anything to the people.
Not much to say, just glad to be back and ready to get going.
So we'll start things off with our regrade of the 2022 NBA draft, or NFL draft, with the latter half of the first round. So I'm pulling up the draft here right now. It's taking a while to load, but once it does, we can look at the 17th pick, which was the Chargers, who selected Zion Johnson, the guard out of Boston College. I would say this was a pretty good pick. I'll give it a solid B, maybe a B+. He's a good player. I think he was a better prospect than the other guard, Kenyon Green, who was picked 2 selections earlier by the Texans. Treylon Burks off the board at 18 to the Titans. I just think there were better receivers on the board from the Titans to take. I think Burks will become a good player, but I think there are better options for them. George Pickens, Christian Watson, both guys in hindsight I would choose over him, and you could maybe make arguments for a few other guys at the receiver position as well. So I'm going to give the pick a C, but he certainly could exceed that. Trevor Penning to the Saints at 19. He didn't really play a whole lot as a rookie, so this grade is more so about what I thought of the pick at the time, and I thought it was a pretty bad pick. I don't think he's all that good of a prospect. I think he's more of a day 2 flyer, so I'll give the pick a D+. And then at 20, the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett, and this is one I've done a complete 180 on. I did not like the pick at the time. I thought they should have picked Malik Willis, and here we are a year later, and I think that I have been proven completely wrong. It's not like Kenny Pickett wowed the world as a rookie. I mean, he wasn't bad. He was fine. But I don't know. I just feel like Kenny Pickett kind of has that edge to him, and I kind of trust him to be a good quarterback in this league, even if he'll never be great. So I'll give the pick a B+. I think the lack of ceiling hurts the grade a little bit, but I think the guy's a good player.
Yeah, with especially Zion Johnson, I do feel like he was a bit underrated. It is a bit harder to tell if O'Lamin is good or not. But I do think Zion Johnson will be good, even better next year when Rashawn Slater comes back. So I'll probably give that one a B. Treylon Burks, there was a lot of second, third-round receivers that were better than he was last year, but it's not like the passing attack for the Titans was that good. So I'll probably give that a C, but I do want to see if he can flourish with a healthy Tannehill. Trevor Penning was not very good, really bad pass protection, and the run game wasn't all that good. So I'm probably going to give that like a D. And then Kenny Pickett, I haven't gone to your side yet with him. He did play better towards the end of the year, but I'm not 100% sold on him yet. I know the receiving game didn't give him any help. Deontay Johnson went back to dropping every ball thrown to him, and Najee Harris decided to turn to Trent Richardson. But I do think he can get better, but I do want to see a bit more production out of him. So I'll give that like a C+ for now.
The Kansas City Chiefs traded up on draft night with one of their 2 first-round picks to select Trent McDuffie, the corner out of Washington. He had a pretty good rookie year. He did allow the 1 big touchdown in the Super Bowl, but I think for the most part he was pretty solid, and there's no reason to think he won't continue to get better. So I think I'll give the pick a B+. The Packers drafted linebacker Quay Walker with the 22nd pick. I thought it was a reach at the time. He did have some good moments towards the second half of the season. He also got ejected for being an idiot twice during that stretch. So in hindsight, I still don't think it's that great of the pick, although he does appear to be on the rise, and there's no reason to think he can't be a good player. But I think in a vacuum, it's still a bad pick, so I'm going to give it a C. The Bills drafted Kaiir Elam, the corner out of Florida, with the 23rd pick. He certainly wasn't horrible as a rookie. I think he had a hard time getting on the field early, but there's no reason to think he won't continue to improve. I think I'll give this pick a B-. And then the Cowboys drafted Tyler Smith, the offensive tackle out of Tulsa at 24. A lot of people didn't like the pick at the time. I didn't really have a major problem with it, and sure enough, Tyler Smith had a pretty good rookie year. I'm going to give the pick a B.
Yeah, this group of 4 isn't all that great. McDuffie's probably the best of these 4. He had a fairly good rookie year for a more of a lackluster corner group on the Chiefs. but I do want to probably give it about a B, and I do think he'll get better as the year goes on. Quay Walker, a little interesting that the Packers go linebacker here, but he did perform good on the field, but off the field there do seem to be some character issues, so I would probably give that like a C minus, depending on if he can get that fixed. Kaiir Elam, for first few weeks, he was on the field and was performing really bad, getting outperformed by like a 5th-round rookie. But down the line, he did start to figure it out, start to get better, especially when Trey White came back. But for now, I'm going to give it another C. Just want to see him be able to perform and take the next step in his sophomore year. And Tyler Smith, everyone clowned this pick because of all the flags, typical Cowboys pick. And he did have a good amount of flags, but he was productive and he was very good filling in for that hole. So I'm going to give it a B+.
So that'll bring us to pick 25. The Ravens got this pick technically from Buffalo, who traded up for Kaiir Elam, but they really got it from the Marquise Brown trade with the Cardinals, and they selected Tyler Linderbaum, the center out of Iowa. I'll give this pick an A-. Linderbaum was good as a rookie. I think he's going to be a solid starter there in Baltimore for a while. Jermaine Johnson, the second, the pass rusher out of Florida State, was the next pick by the Jets. He didn't show a ton as a rookie. A lot of people thought he was going to be a top 10 pick. He ended up falling all the way here to 26, where the Jets traded up for him. He wasn't quite as good as their other rookies. There's no reason to think he won't be a good player down the line, but I'll give the pick a B-. Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah, went to the Jaguars at 27. Through the first month of the year, Lloyd looked like the Defensive Rookie of the Year favorite, and then he kind of fell off a cliff. And with off-ball linebackers, you're kind of questioning the value of if they're going to be worth a first-round return, especially of somebody like Devin Lloyd, who's on the older side. But I did think he was a really good prospect, and he did show some high moments last year. But since he was mostly underwhelming, I'll give the pick a B-. I'm still hopeful for him. And then Devontae Wyatt at 28 to the Packers. Another older player, didn't show a ton as a rookie, and at the time I thought it was a pretty bad pick, and I would say it still was, so I'll give it a C-.
Yeah, Linderbaum was definitely a really good pick from the Ravens. A bit of a question mark not going receiver at the time, and still is, but nonetheless, as a center, not the biggest positional value, but still a great pick. Gonna give that an easy A. Gonna be top 10 center for years to come. Jermaine Johnson, a bit of a raw project for Robert Saleh's defense, but if anyone's gonna make him turn into a stud, it will be Robert Saleh. I'm gonna give that probably a B just because he hasn't had that production yet. Devin Lloyd, I do really like Devin Lloyd's future. He showed the potential that he has within that first about half of the year. So I am going to give it B+. Just need to see him keep that potential showing and to keep it consistent. And then, like you said, Devontae Wyatt, an older prospect, didn't do all that much. He didn't play all that much either. He only started, I think, one game. But with the Packers defense getting a bit older, some of the not having as much money, they're going to have him need to start soon. So in a starting role, I do want to see what he'll be able to do. So I'll probably give that a C+ for now.
New England at 29 selected Cole Strange, the offensive guard out of Chattanooga. At the time, a lot of people thought this was a strange pick, pun intended. And as a rookie, he was fine. I wouldn't say he was great. I'll give the pick a C+. The Chiefs at 30 selected George Karlaftis, the edge rusher out of Purdue. Had some good flashes as a rookie, but wasn't always super consistent. But I think this could be a good pick down the line. I'll give it a B. Daxton Hill, the safety out of Michigan, was the next pick by the Bengals. Didn't have a huge role as a rookie, but I really liked him as a prospect, and he's going to be a starter this year with Jesse Bates out the door. So I'm going to give the pick a B+. This is more so based off of what I thought of him as a prospect rather than what he showed as a rookie. And then at 32, Minnesota selected Lewis Cine, the safety out of Georgia. The trade down from 12 to 32 was pretty bad for the Vikings. This pick in a vacuum also wasn't the greatest. Lewis Cine had the horrific leg injury in London earlier in the season, so he missed pretty much the entire year. So again, this grade is more so what I viewed him on as a prospect, and I think I'll give it a B-.
Yeah, Cole Strange, definitely the most New England pick you can get, but he performed really well, even if he is an older prospect. I'm probably going to give that about a B right now because he just seems to be a really good prospect. Karlaftis did show a lot of promise, had a bit more production than some of those other raw edge rusher prospects that we've seen, but he did help that Chiefs D-line just take the next step up, being alongside Frank Clark, Chris Jones. Probably going to give that about a B now. Dax Hill, he wasn't on the field much, but whenever he did play corner, because the Bengals corner isn't the greatest right now, he did not perform all that great at corner, but with losing both their starting safeties in Bates and Von Bell, he'll be starting at safety and he will be at his natural position. And I do think he'll perform a lot better as just a natural safety. So right now, I do think I'm going to give it a B, but this pick could easily be an A depending on how he performs this upcoming year. And Lewis Cine, definitely a question mark because he didn't play all year. But right now, just getting that safety help for an aging Harrison Smith and whoever they even have at the other safety position, I'd say right now it's a C, but it's a bit hard because you had to trade down and there were so many other safeties that went in round 2 and 3. But we will get to see what he can be this upcoming year.
So that's our regrading the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft. Let's now focus on the current NFL Draft, talking about some guys in the secondary along with other storylines. So our next segment here is going through some more storylines of the 2023 NFL Draft. But before we do that, I think now would be the best time to fit this part into the show because we just kind of have a breaking news bombshell here. But Dan Snyder apparently is in agreement to sell the Washington Commanders for $6 billion to a group led by 76ers co-owner Josh Harris. So this is kind of the big deal. It seems like the Dan Snyder saga might finally be over, and Washington Commanders fans can officially rejoice.
Yeah, I did not even realize that until you just now said it. So this is a bit of a shock to me, but it is a little upsetting as an Eagles fan. I don't get to see the Commanders burn, but as for a league aspect, this is going to be a big thing that the worst owner in the entire NFL is gone finally, and just a lot of the behind-the-scenes dark side of the NFL, I guess you can call it, should slowly dissipate, or at least some of it should. But this should be a win for all.
So let's now look at the secondary. We've gone through some guys we like at every other position now other than defensive back. So we'll take a look at some guys who we're pretty high on, and I'll go first. I really like Deonte Banks out of Maryland. It seems like he's pretty much a consensus first-round guy now. For a while he wasn't, but I think he's really, really good. I think he's one of probably the 4 best corners in this draft class. I also like Cam Smith from South Carolina, the corner. He's an interesting player. I'm not sure if he'll be a first-round pick, but I do think he will be a very good pro. And then looking down the board, I think there are some gems. I really like Jartavis Martin, the versatile safety out of Illinois. Everybody gives Devin Witherspoon the attention on that secondary, and deservedly so, because Devin Witherspoon is really, really good. But I think Jartavis Martin could go earlier than people expect. Maybe a guy who finds his way at the end of like the second round or something. And I think he could end up being a really good pro, depending on how he ends up getting used by his new defensive coordinator. Overall, I think it's a really deep cornerback class. I think there will be some more surprises early. Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami, not getting a ton of first-round buzz. I do think he could end up in the first round. And then even down the board farther, guys like Clark Phillips from Utah. He's a guy who I think could go earlier than expected. So it's certainly a fun group with the DBs. There's a lot of good ones this year.
Yeah, the corners especially seem to be probably the best class of positions in this class, along with the running backs. It's top heavy with guys like Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, who I love both of them. But I do also really like Joey Porter, who a guy is getting a bit slept on just because those first 2 guys are just extraordinarily good. And if Porter can find a home in like Pittsburgh or Commanders to be that guy to solidify that corners, I would definitely love to see him there. But like you said, down the board, there's a lot of gems. You mentioned Tyreek Stevenson. He's getting a bit of first-round buzz that I could see. And a guy who, going into this year, we all thought was going to go top 10. He's fallen out of a lot of people's top 32 board. Keely Ringo out of Georgia. He's extremely raw, but if the right defensive coach can harness his natural abilities, to be able to perform well onto the field, he could easily become a top 15, even a top 10 corner. And then even later down the board into round 3, even day 3, the Bama corner Eli Ricks, I do really like. I think like 2 years ago, people were going to say he was going to go top 10, but obviously that was 2 years ago. That's a little different now. But I do think he has that potential to still be a top corner. And then Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, another guy at that TCU defense. They kind of blundered a bit in the national championship, but he still performed really well, not just in that game, but just overall the entire season. The nephew of Chargers running back LaDainian Tomlinson. Hopefully that natural athleticism and skill in the NFL can translate to the corner position. But we'll definitely see how well those guys do, and all the other guys who, any one of these guys I could see being a productive starter in the NFL.
So we're also briefly going to talk about the number 1 pick with the Carolina Panthers and the early portion of this draft, because there are a lot of question marks now about what the Panthers are going to do. Once they traded for the pick, it seemed like a foregone conclusion to everybody that it was going to be C.J. Stroud. But over the last week or two, we're hearing some buzz that it could be Bryce Young. And when I first heard this, I instantly thought it was a smokescreen. And that's kind of what we get here during draft season. I thought Carolina was trying to bait Houston into trading up for the number 1 pick to try to snag Bryce Young, because I think that's pretty clearly the guy who the Texans want. But I'm really starting to think about it over the last couple of days. It does kind of make sense. I think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this draft class. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And I think the Panthers might be included. A lot of betting sites now have Bryce Young as a comfortable favorite to be the number 1 pick. So over the past week or so, I've been hell-bent on, no, this is smoke. It's not going to be Bryce Young. But I'm kind of starting to change my mind. I really don't know who it's going to be. There's a part of me that still, like, my gut still says that it's C.J. Stroud, but I don't know. I really could see it being Bryce Young now. It's fun not knowing who the pick is over the next 2 weeks, and I hope we don't find out until draft night, because then that'll create a huge spectacle.
Yeah, the smoke around this one individual pick reminds me of not just last year with the Jags on who they're going to take, because the GM, the coach, the owner all wanted different players, but also reminds me of 2020 with San Fran at pick 3 on which QB they were going to take between Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, whoever it was going to be. Obviously, it ended up being Trey Lance, but everyone thought it was going to be Mac Jones. So when I'm hearing everyone was saying it was going to be C.J. Stroud, I personally thought this was the biggest Anthony Richardson go up and get the guy, boom or bust, go for it type of move I've ever seen. I'm not as much on that as I was originally. It could easily be Bryce or Stroud or still Richardson. I know there was a report that said Frank Reich, if he could choose, he would pick Richardson. But we'll have to wait and see on who they pick. I do love the mystery around that first overall pick. But we'll have to wait and see. But I do think any one of those 3 will probably be a good pick for this offense.
Yeah, it is kind of similar to the Niners situation a couple years ago. I remember everybody thought the pick was going to be Mac Jones, and I just kept mocking them, either Trey Lance or Justin Fields, because Mac Jones just never really made sense. Why move up and give up all those draft picks for Jimmy Garoppolo too? So maybe we just try to go with what makes sense, and to me, that's Bryce Young. I think he's the better of the two. I think he's better than Anthony Richardson as well, if you want to throw his name in the mix. So it'll certainly be interesting to see what happens. I think the team that might be panicking the most right now is the Texans, because if Bryce Young is gone, then, well, they're kind of screwed. What do? Do you pick C.J. Stroud? He is the same agent group as Deshaun Watson, so maybe C.J. Stroud is advised not to play there. Do you go with one of the other quarterbacks? Do you go defense? The Texans certainly will be in a pickle if they don't have Bryce Young available to them. So there's almost a part of me that's like, yeah, go move up, get your guy. But if he is Carolina's guy, then they're not going to be willing to do that, obviously.
Yeah, definitely this one pick can definitely just transcend the rest of the draft. Because if they take the Houston's player that they want, then they might decide, you know what, we don't like the rest of these QBs. Let's go get a defensive stud. And that one move can easily transcend the rest of the draft. The Cardinals might stay put. The Cardinals might actually trade down instead of staying put. A different team might even trade up with the Cardinals or even Houston if they want to get a few more assets. just depending on who they go with the Panthers, anything can happen in this draft, and we just have to sit here and just speculate and wonder until the day of. We still have another 2 weeks to go, and this is probably going to be the only thing on my mind for the next 2 weeks, just trying to figure out who the Panthers are going to take. What does that mean for the Houston Texans? What does that mean for the Cardinals are going to trade down? What do the Colts do? And just each pick then becomes a question mark after that one pick.
It'll definitely be exciting to see what happens in 2 weeks from today, as of when we're recording this. We're getting really close. So let's now look at the NBA playoffs. The playing games have kicked off, and we can give our predictions for who we think is going to the finals. The NBA playing games have kicked off this week. The 7-8 and 9-10 matchups are all done, and pretty much all those games ended up being really, really exciting. On Friday, we're going to have the battles for the 8 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Bulls will be facing off against the Miami Heat. The winner of that game will play against Milwaukee, and then OKC will play against Minnesota. And the winner of that series will face off against Denver. So we're going to pick who we think gets the 8 seed. Out of the Eastern Conference, I think it'll be the Miami Heat. I think the Heat are just going to figure it out. I mean, Jimmy Butler in big-time games is a big-time player. Would have been nice to see him show up against Atlanta, but I think I have a hard time thinking the Heat don't win this game. And then in the Western Conference, I'm rocking with the Thunder. I feel like pretty much all of these playing teams have like a negative connotation around them, other than like OKC and maybe the Lakers, because they're all super mediocre. And I don't know if there's any team that's going through more drama and unnecessary negativity right now than the Minnesota Twins. Or not the Twins, the Timberwolves, wrong sport. In their final game of the regular season, Rudy Gobert punched a teammate in the face, and Jaden McDaniels broke his hand by punching a wall. I assume McDaniels will definitely not be available for the game on Friday, and we have no clue what Rudy Gobert's status is. But I'm rocking with the Thunder. They're feeling good vibes, coming off a nice win against the New Orleans Pelicans yesterday. And I think they're going to keep the train rolling. They are a young team, but they have a maturity about them. OKC has such a good foundation and a culture, and teams like the Rockets need to take notes because OKC is developing their young guys right.
Yeah, it almost feels like, at least with the West, with the Thunder Timberwolves, it feels obvious that it's probably going to be the Thunder just because of the past week and a half, 2 weeks. The Wolves have just been dysfunctional, so much drama. No one knows what's going on, and I just don't think they're in the right mindset to go out and win even a play-in game to even make it to the playoffs. So I feel like the Thunder should be the easy upset pick in a way. And then with the East, the Bulls and the Heat, it's weird to say because for a while, you and me both were saying the Heat were probably the one team that, as a lower seed, would probably have the best chance of making a run. But now we're looking at them. They lost against the Hawks. They're 1 game away from being knocked out. And I would not be shocked if the Bulls were able to pull off the upset. Zach LaVine has been playing out of his mind lately. And DeRozan was phenomenal in the first play-in game. And just the Bulls just all around looked like a solid team. And with the Heat not looking as good as we normally think they would be in the playoffs, I would not be shocked if the Bulls are going to be able to get off this upset.
It'll certainly be interesting to see what happens in those games tomorrow. I really think any of those teams can win. I have a hard time thinking any of them make it out of the first round. Miami's shown the ability to do it, but I don't fully trust them. So let's predict who we think will make the NBA Finals. And I think this year is a little bit more challenging than ever because there's so much parity. There's no clear favorite really in either conference. So I think this year's playoffs is going to be a lot of fun. Out of the Western Conference, I am going with the Phoenix Suns. They have not lost a game with Kevin Durant on the floor playing for them, and I think they're going to keep it rolling. This is the team who made the finals 2 years ago. I think they have that chip on their shoulder. Chris Paul obviously has never won a championship, and he's getting older. Devin Booker is a legitimate co-star with Kevin Durant. So I'm rocking with the Suns. I think they beat the Clippers in the first round. Paul George's status is still questionable at best. So if Paul George is not healthy, I don't think the Clippers have much of a chance. I think they upset Denver in round 2, and then I think they get by whoever they would face off against in the conference finals, which really could be any of those 4 teams in the 3-6 or 2-7 matchups. And then in the Eastern Conference, I was really tempted by picking Philly, but I just can't do it. I'm picking the Boston Celtics to make it out of the Eastern Conference. I think they beat Atlanta in the first round pretty handedly. I think the Sixers could give them trouble, and I think this could be the Sixers' year. I think Joel Embiid has that chip on his shoulder. James Harden's playing really well. I think he's hungrier for a championship than ever. I could see that second round series going 7, but I'm still going to rock with the Celtics, and then I think they beat the Bucks again in the conference finals. I could absolutely see Milwaukee making it out of the East, but my gut tells me that Boston is back. So the two teams in the finals are the two teams who have lost the previous 2 finals. And I think I'm going to rock with the Phoenix Suns. Give me them to take it all the way. Kevin Durant as the unquestioned number 1 option, leading a team to a championship. Devin Booker now has a ring. Chris Paul now has a ring. And I'm rocking with Phoenix in 6 games. I feel like every NBA Finals over the last 5 years has been 6 games. So I think that'd be my best bet.
Yeah, this playoffs especially just feels it could really be anybody, even those 7-8 seeds. But in the Western Conference, it feels like a bit of a cop-out. But I feel like I'm going to go with Golden State. They're playing Sacramento in round 1. They're inexperienced in the playoffs. And Golden State's just experience in these big-time games. I would not be shocked if they get, I guess, the upset because they're the lower seed. And then if they either play Memphis or Lakers. If it's the Lakers, I would not be shocked if they easily win that one. But even against Memphis, I feel like Golden State just has Memphis's number to easily make it to the Western Conference Finals. No matter who they play, I do think Golden State is just going to have that number against whatever team it is, whether it's Denver, Phoenix, LA, Minnesota, or whoever wins that playing game. But I do think playoff Steph is probably who you want most in the playoffs right now. And I feel like he alone could probably carry this Golden State team back to the NBA Finals. And then in the Eastern Conference, as much as I want to pick my own team, Philly, like you said, this is probably the best chance we've had since Jimmy Butler was back in town. But I don't want to trust us in the playoffs. I just can't do it. But I am going to go with the Bucks right now. I think Giannis is at the top of his game as he's been past 5, 6, 7 years. And it's going to be hard to between Philly, Milwaukee, and Boston. It's probably going to be one of those 3 teams. But I think it's got to be Milwaukee right now. I think just with Giannis just doing what he's doing, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, they're all on the top of their game right now. I think they get revenge against Boston, make it back to the finals, and they're going against Steph, going against Clay, Draymond, all those guys. And I think I got to give Giannis another ring. He's got his bag right now. I said Steph is probably who you want most in the playoffs. Giannis is easily my number 2 right now. Between those 2 stars playing, I think Giannis' defense is going to help elevate the Bucks over the Golden State Warriors. I'll say with you, 6 games.
So those are our picks for the finals. I'm picking the Suns. He's picking the Bucks. Should be interesting to see what happens here through the playoffs as we now look at the early portion of the MLB season. Let's now take a look at the first few weeks of the MLB season. It's been a pretty fun start to the year. The biggest storyline probably has to be the Tampa Bay Rays, who are currently 12-0 as of when we are recording this. I don't know exactly when this is going to be uploaded, so it'll be ironic if they lose by then. The Rays have not played anybody good. I believe the 4 teams they've played against are the Tigers, the Athletics, the Nationals, and the Red Sox. That's not a very good list. Boston's the best team of that group, and they're still not good. The other 3 teams are probably the 3 worst teams in baseball. So the Rays have beaten nobody. But I still think this is slightly a big deal. It's not like the Rays are winning close games. The Rays are dominating teams. I mean, most of these matchups are not even close. So the level of dominance that Tampa Bay has shown this year certainly means something. I don't think this is like some gigantic deal. We're still in the month of April. I don't think the Rays are all of a sudden magical championship favorites or anything. But it is good to see them playing this well. The offense has been great. The pitching has been great. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up slightly. Obviously, they're not going to go undefeated. They're probably not going to be the best team in the American League, and there's a good shot they don't win their division. But it is certainly an encouraging start to see them playing this well. Could this be the year that the Rays finally get over the hump? They did make the World Series in 2020, but that was a Mickey Mouse year. And other than that, the Rays, while they're usually good, they just have never consistently been great.
Yeah, seeing the Rays start out this hot feels a bit odd because they always feel like a team that just goes under the radar. and ends up winning 90, 100 games, just like in 2021. But this year, just how hot they've been is just really just shocking in a way. You have Randy Rosarena, who's coming off his first debut in Mexico for the World Baseball Classic, and he's been carrying his performance over to the MLB. But it's not just him, just pretty much that entire team. The pitching staff has been on the top of their game. Like you said, the schedule has not been all that great. It's been 3 series against probably the worst 3 teams, and then currently in a 4-game series against a divisional foe, the Red Sox. But even if the teams are bad, it is still ridiculously hard to not just win a single game, but win a series, not just sweep them. Look at plenty of other good teams in the MLB, the Yankees, Blue Jays, Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, Padres, all of them. I don't think any of them have gotten a sweep have gotten at least 2 sweeps this year, let alone 3, almost 4 sweeps all year. The Rays have just been at the top of the game, and at some point they're going to probably cool down. Obviously it's going to happen probably, but just right now at the top of their game, and I don't see a team that is playing nearly as good as the Rays are right now.
A lot of teams who we expected to start off poorly are playing well, and a lot of teams who are starting off poorly we figured would do well. Look at teams like the Cardinals, the Phillies, and the Mariners, playoff teams from last year who have not gotten off to good starts at all. And then on the flip side, you have teams like Arizona, Minnesota, Texas, teams who were not very good last year who have gotten off to great starts here in the month of April. I don't think it's a huge deal. We're still in early April. Most of these teams have played 12, 13 games, so we're not even 10% through the season. So because of that, I don't think it's really time to be overly excited or overly worried for any of these teams. But I think if you look at some of the teams who have exceeded expectations, it has been pretty fun to see those teams succeed. The Arizona Diamondbacks have a really good young core. No one's really talking about them, but they have such a bright future. Corbin Carroll's a guy who can legitimately become a superstar one day. They've got a bunch of big-time prospects throughout the organization, and they're getting a lot of these young guys up to the big leagues, and they're all producing. So the Diamondbacks are absolutely a team to watch, to really be on the rise in the National League West. It's going to be hard competing with the Dodgers and the Padres, but with more wild card spots, maybe not this year, but I would say as soon as next year, the Diamondbacks could be a team who is consistently in the playoff chase. And then looking more in detail of the teams who are struggling, again, I wouldn't really worry about it yet. Come back to me at the end of the month, and maybe my answer will be different.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to find really big storylines so early into the season when the season is 162 games. But looking at specifically, like you said, Arizona, their offense has just been on fire lately. They lead the league in stolen bases and the top half of runs scored in the game. And they've just been electric on offense. And people love to talk about Baltimore right now. Baltimore's on fire. Ryan Mountcastle just had 9 RBIs in a game the other night. And they've been electric as well. But no one is talking about this just electric Arizona Diamondbacks, who is currently leading the division. That includes the loaded LA Dodgers and the super team of the San Diego Padres. And I think I mentioned it in our predictions that I think the Diamondbacks are a low-key, could be the next Orioles type of team. I didn't put them in a wild card because I didn't think they're ready just yet. And I know it's early April, but I would not be shocked if one of these NL playoff teams slow down a bit, take a step back, and just aren't ready to make that playoffs again, like the Cardinals or Phillies or even Brewers. And the Diamondbacks just keep performing how they're going, keep doing what they're doing, keep stealing those bases, getting the hits, doing what they need to do, and just sneak their way into the playoffs. They probably won't go very far, but with such a young core, making the playoffs so early can get them that experience that they need to be able to be even dominant the next 10 years.
It'll certainly be interesting to see what happens here over these next few weeks. I think we can really start to make conclusions then, but again, it's halfway through April. Don't want to jump the gun too much. So we're going to do now our regular fun segment here to wrap up today's episode. So we're going to wrap up today's episode with the fun segment, fun and games, and what we're going to be doing today is more top 10s. We did this a couple episodes ago. We went over our top 10 quarterbacks, point guards, and starting pitchers. So we're going to keep the trend moving, going over our top 10 running backs, shooting guards, and relief pitchers / closers. So I'll go first with my top 10 running backs. I think this is probably going to be the hardest list I have to do because running back is such a weird position, and I feel like we're kind of in a transition period. All of those great running backs who entered in the 2016 to 2018 range, especially the 2017 draft, a lot of those guys are starting to get worse and regress. Now we're starting to see a new age of young guys coming up who have been drafted over the last couple of years. So it's kind of a tough balance of, do I give the old guys their credit, or do I project these young players to pass them this year? So I think I ended up doing a little bit of both. Number one for me is Nick Chubb. I think he's the best in the world right now. I think really any of these top three guys could be in consideration for number one, but I've got Nick Chubb right now. Number two, I know he's a little bit older, but I'm going with the king. Derrick Henry is my number two running back. Tennessee's offense last year was abysmal, and Derrick Henry was the only thing who made that offense work. I kind of want to see him on a contender before it's too late because he is getting older. He's had some injury stuff the past couple of years, so we could see him start to slip. But he has not regressed yet compared to some of these other running backs who were drafted around when he was. Number three, I have Christian McCaffrey. There's an easy argument for him to be number one. I don't think he's as dominant as a runner as the top two guys are, but he is still a great option in the passing game. You can get the ball in his hands in a variety of different ways. Last year, he stayed fully healthy, and he was awesome for both the Panthers and the 49ers. Number four, I have Saquon Barkley on the franchise tag. He really rebounded last year. He looked like rookie Saquon Barkley all over again. And then number five, another guy who rebounded last year, Josh Jacobs, the rushing title winner with the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe he is also on the franchise tag. So it'll be interesting to see if either of those guys end up getting long-term deals from their current teams. Number six, I have Jonathan Taylor. His second year, he might have been the best back in football. Last year did not exactly go as well. He was banged up, and even when he was healthy, he didn't look the same. But I still think he's easily a top 6 running back in the NFL. Number 7 down, this is where I had some trouble. Number 7 for me, I'm going to put Austin Eckler. Eckler is not some elite runner, but I do think he deserves a lot of credit as a pass catcher. He's very important to that Chargers offense. What team is he going to play for next year? I don't know. It seems like he doesn't really want to go back to the Chargers. Number 8, we're going with a young guy here. Travis Etienne played really well down the stretch with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I drafted him in pretty much every fantasy league last year, and I'm happy I did because he played really well for them, and I think he's going to continue to get better. Number 9, we've got one of the older guys. I have Dalvin Cook here. If compared to like Alvin Kamara and Joe Mixon, who are also showing signs of regression, I'm going to give Dalvin Cook the benefit of the doubt because he's had a shoulder injury that's kind of lingered him the last couple of years. He got that fixed in the offseason, so maybe he could look like young Dalvin Cook again. And then number 10, I decided to go a little bit hot-takey. I could have gone with one of the big rookies last year, Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker. I could have gone with one of the older guys, but I know he's technically not in the NFL right now, but I think Bijan Robinson's a top 10 running back at the moment. So I'm going to put him at number 10. If he doesn't count because he's not on a team, I think I'd probably put Breece Hall there. But I think Bijan Robinson's one of the top 10 running backs at this point in time. So I'm going to put him at 10.
I do think the top 3 of our list is pretty similar. I do think that 1, 2, 3 could go in any order. But then that 4 through 10, that could go in any way. But for me, number 1, same as you, Nick Chubb. He just seems the most consistent player. Might be the most consistent player in the league right now. Just always seems to get 100 yards a game, touchdown, maybe 2, getting 6 yards a carry. Just does not seem stoppable right now. 2, I did flip with you. I put CMC at 2. I do think with him on the Niners, without him, they don't get as far as he did. I know Shanahan's offense, they can make any running back good, but CMC just is that much of a difference maker to make them over the top. And then 3, King Henry. He's almost 30 now, but he is just electric. Just like Nick Chubb, he is just that unstoppable. Just Nick Chubb has a bit more speed, a bit more pass catching ability than Henry. And just like you said, I do wish he was on a better team to be able to get into the playoffs again and have a chance at a ring. But then this 4 through 10, this is where it all gets messy for me. At 4, I am going to give respect Jonathan Taylor. I do think with a better O-line this upcoming year, he will be back to that top 10 form. But like you said, he was a bit shaky last year, so I don't want to put him in that top tier candidate right now. But I do think he'll be back to form next year. Josh Jacobs, a guy that stepped up. He's at my 5. I've always been a Josh Jacobs hater. I just always thought he was averaged, just was a carries magnet, just got so many carries. It looked good. But this past year, he turned it up a notch. And hopefully he gets out of Vegas because he does not want to be there. And maybe he gets to a better team. Just don't be the Commanders. 6, guy you might have forgotten about, Tony Pollard. Even partnered back with Ezekiel Elliott, he was electric as the king of our Dynasty League, as the prime Tony Pollard fantasy owner. I love this man to death. So him at 6, easy. 7, I think I had the same spot as you, Austin Eckler. As a runner, not as good as some of these other guys, but that pass catching ability is phenomenal. 8, I'm a bit lower on him than you are. I got Saquon Barkley. Have to respect him because he's still really good. But I do think after those injuries, after his rookie year, he has taken a bit of a step back. But I do think he is still easily a top 10 back. I think, again, same spot. 9, I put Dalvin Cook. I do really think he is one of the better backs, even if he's getting a bit older. I do think he still has that electric ability. And in that Rams-style offense, I do think he will perform even better after that surgery. And then at 10, you mentioned his name, but you put Bijan over him. I put in Breece Hall. He only played 4 or 5 games as a starter, but those 4 or 5 games were electric. And if he was healthy all year, he might be, I probably would put him top 5, top 6 right now. But I need to see him do it for a full year, see what he comes back after that ACL injury. But if he stayed healthy all year, he was easily the offensive rookie. He was averaging 10 yards a carry, 200 yards. Just, he was insane. Nothing against Kenneth Walker, Kamara, Mixon. Breece Hall is just another beast.
So now let's do the top 10 shooting guards. This was a list I kind of had some trouble with towards the bottom, and the NBA is becoming more of a positionless league. I did what you did last time. I just went off of their positions based off of Basketball Reference. So guys like Jaylen Brown and Josh Giddey I originally had on the list, but for what I saw, they're not listed as shooting guards on Basketball Reference, so I ended up taking them off. Number 1 through 3, you can really put in any order. Right now, number 1 for me is Donovan Mitchell. I think he's the best in the game. He was awesome this year for Cleveland, their best player, 4th place in the Eastern Conference. He was outstanding. Number 2, I'm going to roll with Devin Booker with the Phoenix Suns. He has been the number 1 option on a finals team before. He's the 2nd option now, but still very, very good player. Number 3, I have Paul George. I think a lot of people would have expected me to put Paul George in number 1, and I really want to because he's one of my favorite players in the league. But right now, I think Mitchell and Booker are just a little bit better than him, but he is still obviously fantastic. Number 4, I know he played horribly a couple nights ago, but I think Anthony Edwards deserves that spot. He was fantastic this year, first-time All-Star. Yes, he was terrible in the play-in game against the Lakers. Number 5, I'm going to roll with Zach LaVine with the Chicago Bulls. He's been a little bit disappointing over the past season or so, but still has been really, really good. Number 6, another guy who's kind of taken a slight downhill turn, but is still really good, is Bradley Beal with the Washington Wizards. Number 7, we're going to go with Klay Thompson. He had the Achilles and the ACL tear, and now he looks as good as new. Still a fantastic player with the Golden State Warriors. Number 8, I have DeJounte Murray with the Atlanta Hawks. Murray was not great this year. I think the fit with Trae Young isn't supernatural, but he is still really, really good. Number 9, we're going with T-Rex Arms himself, Desmond Bane with the Memphis Grizzlies. He had a breakout season this year. I thought he should have won the most improved player last year, and this year he's been even better. Big-time shooter, perfect complementary backcourt piece with Ja Morant. And then number 10, there were a few guys I thought about here. Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Jordan Poole, to a lesser extent RJ Barrett, but I decided to go with Anthony Simons of the Portland Trailblazers. I think he's really, really good. He had some big games without Dame on the floor, and even with Dame, he had some big games as well.
Yeah, looking at this guard spot, it is a bit hard to find guys who are specifically shooting guards. I know specifically Edwards, you could classify him as a small forward, but I think these 10, are solid enough to be that guard spot. But that 1 and 2, that Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, I feel like that is the prime who you could put in any order. But for one, I have Devin Booker right now. I think even when he was the number one option for the Suns, he was electric. And when you're the number 2 option on an offense and you're still top 15, top 20 player, that is just phenomenal. And then number 2, I have Donovan Mitchell. He has carried this Cavs team back to the playoffs, and there's no reason you should stat him right now. Number 3, right there with you, Paul George. He's been really good. I do want to see what he does in the playoffs this year because he's been infamous for not performing all that well. But I do think he still has a good bit left in the tank. Number 4, I have Zach LaVine. I mentioned it earlier, even today. Zach LaVine has been on a tear lately, and if the Bulls are going to make a run, it's going to be because of him. And number 5, Anthony Edwards. He, on himself, has been on a tear except for the play-in, but he has kind of been out of the dark spot of this Wolves team lately, and he's just kind of sitting there, doing his thing, doing what he needs to do. Maybe he gets traded, the Wolves try to blow it up, because it seems like they might need to, but I think right now he's just working on doing what he wants to do best. Number 6, I'm a bit higher on him than you are, DeJounte Murray. The Hawks are back in the playoffs, beating the Heat last night, and like you said, the chemistry between him and Trae Young isn't the greatest, but I do think he still has that raw talent. Number 7, Desmond Bane. He's going to fight us for not putting him top 5, but I do think he still has that talent to be classified as a top 7 player at his position. Number 8, Klay Thompson. He is taking a major step back after all the surgeries, the Achilles surgery, everything, but I do think he still has that talent to be a top 10 player at the position. Number 9, Bradley Beal. You've been a bit of a Beal hater lately, but I do think he still has what is in the tank. I know I haven't put him lower than you. I'm a bit shocked by that, but I do think he still has what it takes to be an all-star player. He just needs to get the hell out of Washington. And number 10, you mentioned his name again. I'm a little biased. Quentin Tyrese Maxey. He's been a bit on a bench spot lately, but I do think coming off that bench, he is one of the better players to help run the offense, not just as a shooting guard, but as a point guard even too. And I do think him off the bench has been able to lead the Sixers backcourt, frontcourt, whatever it is, to help elevate them to the playoffs.
So now we're going to look at our top 10 relievers / closing pitchers before we wrap up the episode. Number 1 for me, I know he's injured all year, but I'm going with Trumpet Man. I think Edwin Diaz right now is the best in the business, although number 2 right behind him, Emmanuel Clase, is really close. I think both Diaz and Clase are very, very good, but I think for now, Edwin Diaz just gets the slight boost up, but him not playing this year could hurt his ranking. We'll see. Number 3, I'm going with Devin Williams of the Milwaukee Brewers. He is really good. He won the Rookie of the Year in 2020. He's been a little inconsistent over the next year or so, but really since the start of 2022, he's been fantastic. Number 4, he's coming off a down year, but I'm still rolling with my long-laxed brethren, Josh Hader, with the San Diego Padres. His ERA was in the 5s last year, obviously traded away from Milwaukee. I think he will rebound, though. Number 5, I feel like he doesn't get enough credit within the Astros' successes recently, but Ryan Presley is really, really good. He has been shut down for them throughout big games. Number 6, a breakout guy last year, Ryan Helsley with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was one of the best relievers in baseball last year. No reason to think he can't keep it going. Liam Hendriks, number 7 with the Chicago White Sox. I think he just wrapped up his cancer treatment. It seems like he's going to be all good, which is great to see. He's been very good with the A's and the White Sox over the last few years, and hopefully he'll be able to keep it going. The lefty from Atlanta, A.J. Minter, I have him at number 8. Really, really good player. Another guy who doesn't get talked about enough with their successes. Number 9, I'm rolling with Evan Phillips with the Dodgers. He kind of came out of nowhere last year and was really good. The advanced stats across the board look really strong. And then number 10, Johan Duran with the Minnesota Twins. He had a sub-2 ERA last year, sub-1 whip. He's a young guy, and there's no reason to think he can't continue to climb up this list over the next few years.
Yeah, just like you were saying, that 1 and 2, again, just could go either way. And I flipped it. I got Clase at 1. The flamethrower, I love what he brings to the table as a closer. And especially with Diaz being hurt all year, I do think he'll finally be able to take that top closing spot. And then I got Edwin Diaz at 2. I do think he came out of nowhere kind of almost last year. He was still good, but last year he just took it up to another level. especially with that the trumpet song. And 3, just like you, Devin Williams, probably going to be the new closer for the Brewers. But since last year, he has just been phenomenal. He did punch a wall before the playoffs in 2021, which I still think is hilarious. But I do think he is probably the best non-closer, if he is a closer now. I don't know. Number 4, you underrate him a little bit, Liam Hendricks. I know as soon as he gets back on the field after his cancer treatment, he will be electric. He is a dominating force on that mound as a closer. And then right behind him, I feel number 5, Josh Hader. He really took it up a notch toward the end of the year last year. Started off a bit cold, got traded to the Padres, was really bad when he first started. But towards the end of the year, going to the playoffs, he was just electric. And then number 6, Ryan Presley. I'm right there with you, man. I watched those Astros bullpen guys coming against the Phillies in the World Series. And, man, we could not score at all against these guys. It was really – it sucked losing, but it was fun to watch those Astros bullpen guys. Number 7, Daniel Bard. He got MVP votes last year from the 2 Rockies voters, which is hilarious to me, but I do think he is a really good reliever that I did not even know about until I saw some guy named Daniel Bard get MVP votes. Number 8, Andres Munoz from the Mariners. A more underrated guy that people sometimes forget about, and I do really like the Mariners bullpen, but Andres Munoz is going to be right there in that bullpen, helping out what seems to be a struggling starting rotation this year. And then 9, Johan Duran. Really love what he's got. The Twins are starting out hot this year, and he's been hot just like he was last year. He had 1.82 ERA in almost 70 innings, which is phenomenal for anyone, even if it's a reliever. Number 10, going back to the Astros, Brian Abreu. I love what he brings to the table, and he was right there along Ryan Presley, getting the Astros the win in the World Series. And it was hard to watch, but like I said, man, it was fun watching them throw the ball.
So those are our top 10 lists, and that'll do it for today's episode, number 6 in the books. Another fun episode here, and again, we'll be going pretty much weekly up until the NFL draft, which is now 2 weeks away. So, Nick and Ader, if you want to give the people anything before we sign off.
Not much to say, just really excited for the NFL draft to show up, really excited for the start of the MLB season, and hopefully Philly doesn't choke in the playoffs this year for NBA.
So yeah, that'll wrap it up. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and peace out.